Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Madness Entertainment Group presents the Madness Comic Network with original programming and additional comic-related content.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 7th and 8th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Creating beyond calculation, beyond politics, beyond the big two. It's the boys' town tonight. Look at us, man. The core group. No Barb, but we've got a special show tonight. We've got the paragon of pencils himself, Rob Davis, is going to be demonstrating for us how to pencil a comic book page and ink a comic book page.
Well, yeah.
I didn't know Rob could draw.
Yeah, every now and then. It's a hobby of his.
It's a hobby.
I'm still practicing. Yeah, I'm still practicing.
He's still learning.
I bet you my stick figures are better than yours, Rob.
See how it's going to be? Aaron set the tone, kids.
All right.
Aaron,
it is definitely.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
The sun's already out. It's going to be a very mature discussion tonight, kids. I can tell already. I'm Dean Zachary, your host. We have, besides Rob Davis, we have one of the wizards here of wordsmithing, Rory Boyle. We also have the superior skeptic, Aaron Humphreys. Do we have another wizard on the way? Do you know, Rory? Is Scott going to make it tonight?
He is trying.
I hope so. We need both wizards of wordplay tonight if we're going to banter successfully.
It'll really turn into the old guys from the Muppets.
Yeah,
really will. Statler and Waldorf personified. Yeah, really. As we
Me and Roy could be those hecklers like in the Muppet Show. Look at this
That's
guy
right, that's-
drawing,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's who we're talking about, man.
Mhm.
Oh, jeez.
I love
So-
good music. Me too. Let's get out of here.
Woo! So what we're going to set the table here and just let everybody know what Rob is working on. First of all, for people who may not know, Rob Davis is a veteran, a legend, as you know. He's worked on Star Trek and a lot of things you'd know about. The book he's working on now is called Boston Bombers. Correct,
You're right.
Rob?
Right. Correct.
And give us just a little, the TV Guide tagline of what this is about as we get into it.
Oh my goodness! This is not one for an elevator ride to pitch. This is an alternate universe in which Jesus was a woman.
Okay.
And World War II never took place.
Oh, okay.
Airships and prop airplanes are still the height of aerospace
Man, I keep telling
in the
Scott they're coming back.
1980s. In the 1980s, when this was actually 80s or 90s, when Ron first wrote this, this is a follow up to a series he wrote back in the
So what year is
late
that
80s, early 90s.
What year
This
is the comic supposed to be in?
It's set in the 80s. 80s or
1980s. Okay, the comic is set in the 1980s. Okay.
Yes, because that's when he wrote it originally. I mean, it's kind of, since it's an alternate universe, it could really be any time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but the idea is like that because it looks like almost ancient Rome, but it's supposed to be the idea.
I was just about to explain that.
Okay.
This is a flashback. The first 4 or 5 pages are a flashback to the Roman era, which is the Romans have existed they didn't lose. The barbarians didn't take them over. The Roman Empire didn't fall.
Okay.
So the Roman Empire is still out there.
Okay.
And this is going back to when all the differences from our universe to this universe. The Roman Empire actually moved to Africa.
Okay.
So it's kind of so there's a lot of African Americans or Africans, black people who are part of the Roman Empire because of this, and we're going back into this is a flashback to that time period where the Romans are moving into Africa, and the page after the one I'm drawing now is when the big clash between an African army and the Roman army happens. So this is the lead. This is the lead into that.
Show us the spectacular opening shot where you have.
Well, actually, that spectacular shot is, and Ron is real good about writing stories. Your first page is, you're starting to set the scene, and then you turn the page over and you see something even what that. This is page 1.
Okay.
Okay, we're showing the Africa veldt. There's zebras kind of setting, and there's a lion about to attack them, but you hear the stomp of and it's a Roman sandal, and then
boom,
it goes to a big page of the Roman Legion.
That's incredible.
With these 2 lead-in panels up here at the top.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then the third panel where they're talking, and again you see a shot of the Roman Legion and an elephant, so that it just kind of solidifies where you are. And what's going on, and then that's the end of that, and then we go to this page I'm working on now.
Okay, so that'd be page 4 you're working on now.
I'm on page. Yes. Okay. This is page 4 here. Yeah, it says page 4.
Aaron, when you get a moment, could you share with us the rough thumbnail of that page? Just because I want to build up to what Rob is doing here, but. Can you tell us while that's happening, Rob? Can you share with us approximately when you sit down to do a page from after you pull the reference? How long does it take from concept thumbnail to complete pencils first, and then I want to know how long it takes to ink. But just when you sit down, you've got your references, you've read over the script, right?
Yeah.
And you've got your thumbnail. How long does it take to get a penciled page in general?
Usually a day, sometimes less. It depends on how much detail. I mean, when we're talking, a legion,
Yeah.
That took this
That's-
page took a little longer than that.
Right. It's a little intense.
This one
yes.
took like 3 days.
Yes.
Because
Wow.
I start by doing the foreground guys.
Right.
You can see the uniforms. I got reference for that, and then I had to work my way back. And unfortunately, the picture that I had for this that I used that I put on my light box to kind of set the stage here, it undulates, so I can't cut and paste to make the depth. But these guys off over here, these guys on horseback, they could be cut and pasted. So they actually, in the one that I've used, extend all the way back here.
Wow.
Because I cut and pasted them behind.
So would you draw it like as a larger scale, and then
I see these
copy
are
it, shrink it
larger.
down?
They're closer to the front. That's why, rather than draw them small and then try and blow them up, I drew the big one first and then just slid them behind in Photoshop. You cut these guys out and paste them over, and then and then after you cut them, they're still in the copy box. So you just paste, shrink, paste, shrink, paste, shrink. So it works pretty quick. But that part was real fast. After I got it drawn, but the rest, that took a while.
Yeah.
But but that really grabs you. That panel grabs you.
It really does.
So have you ever been tempted? I know it's a stupid question because I've always been tempted to like draw somebody picking their nose or flipping the bird in the crowd, just to see if anyone would even notice.
I've done things like that. Yeah.
Okay, so he has. All right. So all right.
Yes.
There's none of that here, unfortunately. But
there's a mischievous streak. just like you.
Well,
so.
especially
you draw Waldo in there.
Waldo.
Waldo's in there.
That's right. No, but I could have. Actually, I wish I had now.
Yeah.
There you go.
But
Let me know when you want me to share the screen. Do you want me to go ahead and do that now?
Yeah,
or?
go ahead and do that. Let's.
Find it on the Wednesday Wham Messenger page. What it's from.
I shared it.
This
with
is
him.
the preliminary rough.
Yes.
Okay, let's get I'll get the page here so you can see what the differences are.
So tell us what were you tasked with? You read in the script and you decided, okay, I'm going to start. It looks like you're starting with a relative close-up of two soldiers.
Yeah, there's a centurion, and I forget what the other guy's rank is, but he's a higher ranking. He's above a centurion. I'm not sure what that is. I'd have to get the script. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it won't even be on this page, but the character's name is Augustus, I believe. It's not Caesar Augustus, but his name is Augustus. And the two of them have been talking from the previous page about coming into Africa and why they're there in Africa, and talking about that. And then the second panel is them noticing two scouts riding up on horseback. And then on panel 2, we flip the camera from the side where the scouts are, and we see from their side, and we see the two people who've been talking earlier in the background, and also off to the right there, you see a few of the Roman soldiers. And then we flip the camera back again from to kind of echo that second panel, but from the other direction, and how they're being greeted. And then the last panel is an echo of panel 1 or page 1, where a foot stomps down in the lower right hand corner. So that's what
just see that. About. We have one of our viewers, Dante, says those look great.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Dante. Excuse me.
Thank you. No, that's so. There you go. You have
this
that.
Is the other one. Okay.
This we go to the page where it gets refined.
And that's the rough
here.
That's the very rough pencils.
Okay.
That's what I call. It's essentially what I call a gesture drawing. You're just trying to lay in. You're just trying to lay in the characters. And
that's what I do. I do a lot too.
Yeah. If you remember from the thumbnails, these two guys up in the upper left-hand corner, they were facing towards us before. And the reason that I turned them like that away from us is the one on the left is speaking first in the dialogue. The one on the right is speaking second in the dialogue. You have to be sure when you're drawing a comic book that you don't make the letterer's job even harder. And it's good in this case since I'm the letterer as well as the inker and penciler. but at this, so I know approximately how much room to leave. But I also noted, well, wait a minute, this dialogue happens this way. So to make it easier, I had to flip the camera just a little bit. Plus, it also helps lead into that next panel a little better.
Does that would that be considered? Now I don't know, like breaking the 180 rule, which I don't think really works in comics, but I know in movies they talk about that.
Well, in cinematography, and I usually try to follow it, but this page breaks that rule.
And I think it works. I've heard that before.
What is the 180 rule?
And I'll explain it.
Okay.
All right. Then this is what I'm teaching it to people. The 180 rule. So let's say it's a Spider-Man comic book. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man goes out the window of his apartment complex. He swings from panel side left to right, leaving, and the camera is pointing at him that way. And this is also a little bit of storytelling here as well. But the camera looks at him that way. So later on in the story, when he comes back, you put that camera in the same place so that he swings in from the right to the left. But also, when you're having two characters speaking, the 180 rule is when the establishing panel puts a plane between the two characters. Somehow you're cutting the people in half, and so you're cutting the scene into a semicircle, and you can move that camera anywhere in that 180 degree area during that discussion, during the dialogue, so that it doesn't break the storytelling. Now it's easier to break that rule in comics than it is in a movie. In a movie, if you're not following that 180 rule really closely, you can really confuse the viewer. Yeah. But if you it can be done a lot easier in comic books. I still try to follow that rule fairly closely, but you want it like the camera, your characters, you 360 degrees. You put however you got those characters standing, speaking to each other, you split that in half, and you only go in this area around them. You don't go behind them. But
makes sense.
A lot of times, what I can do is I will rotate the camera all the way around. You can do that too, because they do that in movies as well. You're going when you go around behind them, you're still moving that same direction.
It usually is mostly used for cuts. If you're rotating the camera, you can see the motion. So the one I was always explaining, I think Rob was explaining it too, is if somebody's standing to the right, if somebody's standing to the left talking to each other. Oh, I'm getting my
You should always keep them on the left and the right. Yeah.
And then if you cut to a scene in the reverse, people are going to think they actually exchanged places, that they actually moved, like stepped around the move.
Exactly.
It confuses the viewer. If you take the camera and rotate it, that's a different. But if you do cuts, where you're flipping it around, it looks like they're like moving back and forth,
which is why you'll see in a few Star Trek episodes, and I noticed it in a Perry Mason episode the other week, where they when they did one of the cutaway scenes, they probably didn't shoot at the same time they did the other parts of the scene. They actually flopped the negative so that the guy's part went from one side of his head to the other, just so they wouldn't break that 180 rule. And I've seen that happen a couple of times in Star Trek as well, where they did the same thing. They flopped the negative, and you can tell if you're watching quick enough, you can see that the badge on their uniform flips from one side to the other. But that's usually because they've shot the scenes at different times. And whoever is in charge of continuity
wasn't keeping.
So they flopped the negative to make it work.
Yeah, even when I'm drawing comics, you really have to pay attention to continuity, even in details of like.
Yeah, you put a glass down on the table, it can't move by itself.
Yeah, it's weird. You get used to it pretty soon unconsciously. You're just kind of doing it. But it is weird if you see it done. And then you're like, oh wait, how did that? And it's just they weren't paying attention.
So to fix it, say you had like that classic circular scene, like all the bad guys, when their screens are all in a circle, or a ritual or a ceremony.
Yeah,
you'd have that establishing shot of the circle, and then you'd only have to rely on close-ups, right?
Right.
You'd be spending so much.
Yeah. So you got it. So when you do those close-ups, if that guy was facing from one side, from the left to the right, when you do the close-ups, he should still be looking left to right.
Yeah.
and your camera can only move in that 180-degree circle.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not
you
each
can
person.
have him. You can almost have him looking into the camera if you move that camera far enough.
Right.
But you can't go past that plane.
Yeah.
That you
It's a
cut
general
in
rule
that
of
scene.
thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
you
general.
can do it. Yeah.
People adjust to it. The along with staging, the other element that you have to pay attention to, and I see that as well, leave enough room for lettering, no matter where the lettering is going to go. You got to leave enough room, because one of the mistakes people make is they want to fill every corner of the panel. It helps to keep in mind that in general, above the heads of the characters is a good place to leave dead space for balloons, for talk balloons, and so on.
That's the page with the dialogue in it. I mean, there's panel 1, panel 2. Fortunately, panel 2 doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue in it, but it give it more impact. You put it in the middle of a big empty space like that, but you try to leave a lot of room. And when I'm lettering, I try to. I don't see this a lot in modern lettering, but I go by the old rule. It's got to be anchored to the sides of the panel somehow.
Yes.
Yeah, there are some. If you want to make a big impact, you can put it like floating in there with a nice long arrow coming out of
pointer.
it.
A pointer.
A pointer.
Uh-huh.
But I always try to anchor it. Like, my intention is to anchor it, the first dialogue there, and maybe if I have to, put it down here for the second one. But that'll help carry you through. And again, we'll see where it leads to put that other panel, balloon that goes in that panel.
It's fair to say that eye flow is a concern with lettering, and you're leaving room for that as you develop the pencils. You're leaving room, in the negative spaces or the unrendered areas of each panel for the upcoming letterer to carry your eye from panel to panel. But I wanted to touch on something else too. Okay. As you're rendering, for those pencilers, aspiring pencilers out there, as you're rendering, do you render and finish each panel at a time, or do you bounce from panel to panel? Do you complete, in other words, panel 1 done, go to panel 2 done, or is that part of your work habit, or do you just draw and let it flow as it comes to you?
We did that. We showed that gesture drawing earlier.
Yes.
So what I'll do is I'll go and essentially lay in the gesture drawing for the whole page. And then I'll come back and tighten up the pencils.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing tighter pencils here for the demonstration, but since I'm inking this, a lot of times I'll leave it a lot looser. Like this panel down here at the bottom, you can see there's a lot of overdrawing. There's, the background where everything's going here. That'll all get erased out, but it's still there. So, if another inker got this, he might go, well, does he want me to do these lines too? Or, what's going on here? But as the inker, I know that's all going to go away. So, that's normally how I leave it for myself. Actually, even a little looser than this is.
Can we see close? Can we see a close up of that, Rob? Close to the camera. Oh yeah. Yeah. See, that's much looser than the other. Yeah. So another good rule of thumb here. If you're inking if you're penciling for yourself, it's a completely different approach than penciling for someone else who's going to ink it.
The old rule I heard was, an editor once told me, don't leave room for the inker to screw it up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to get Rob as the main focus here, since he's giving the pencil.
Rob has to do it. Rob,
can you, that way, because you're showing your pencils, but your screen is so small that I'm thinking if we can get you into a more of a bigger picture, like now that bit, like let's see.
I think
something like that, but instead of Dean, have you be there so people can see your pictures.
If you can choose.
Yeah. So I think on your end, underneath the little like screen layout things,
I don't see anything.
Let me see here.
Yeah, I don't have any of that.
Okay.
I'm on an iPad. I don't know if it's got any of that or not.
It should have it under the.
It says mic cam settings.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a way. There's a full one.
Yeah, there's a
Now
full
we
one
get him
too.
priority. Hold on, let me remove him solo.
Hey, Scott, you hide those bodies?
Oh yeah,
Scott,
yeah.
welcome, my friend.
Hey,
Okay, we can do
Scott,
both.
there we
Just
go.
hold on.
There
Now
Let's
we're
see.
cooking.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, that was
No, it's gonna
whatever
keep
you
doing
did.
it. Okay, I can't figure it out. I'll figure it out later. Okay, when he
You
shows
got it
something,
there
we'll
for a
just
second.
make. Yeah,
You had it there for a
but
second.
no one else was showing up, so I mean.
Yeah,
sorry.
that's the drawback. Yep.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure this out.
Scott, as you can tell, we are well into a page from Boston Bombers, and what we've seen some amazing work already that Rob's already completed in terms of an entire Roman legion advancing on the African veldt. It's a beautiful shot. If you want to review that for Scott, Rob, it's just an amazing scene. Look at that.
Wow,
Right?
that's so cool.
So next time you think we don't do anything as pencilers, so see.
Oh yeah, that's what I think most of the time.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah, and in
Those
the
guys, they're
and
just
in the
having
script,
fun.
all it says is
I don't know why they're
Roman
charging so
legion
much.
marches
Yeah, I know.
across the veldt.
Doodling.
That's
Why does
all
it take them
says.
so long, right? Why does it? We used to talk about that. An upcoming guest, Steve Englehart, is a writer I had the good fortune to work with early
I
on.
definitely want to be here for him.
That's
I love his work.
That'll be announced later, but he wrote a scene, and it was in a large stadium, and I remember joking, going, "Yeah, easy to write, hard to draw." So
Yeah.
it takes you about 10 seconds to write a fully crowded stadium of cheering fans, and then a penciler sees that and goes, "Oh man, that's my day. That's my whole day."
Yeah.
That's it right there. So
Takes a lot of brain power.
you learn, well, it's not only that, you learn how to budget time. Talk to us a little bit about after you read the script for a page and okay, I've got a crowd scene in here. Does that affect how much detail you put into subsequent panels, Rob, or do you adjust for that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, especially if there's an establishing panel, I put a lot of detail in it. I work out in my mind where everything's got to be, so that when we do close-ups, I can leave out all the extraneous stuff that I put in the background because it's already in the reader's mind. So all you have to worry about is, say it's a dining room and you got these two people sitting at a dining room table, and they're drinking or they're eating or whatever. So you've established where all that is, plus all the stuff that's in the background. And you go, so when you start doing the back and forth dialogue between the two characters or three or however many's at the table, you only have to draw, the glass that's in their hand, or, something that establishes they're still at the table, but you don't have to put all that extraneous stuff in. You build it with that establishing panel, and then you play off of it for the rest of the page or the rest of that sequence if it's like a 2 or 3 page sequence.
Does that also work for no matter how complex the stage is? Let's say you're on the bridge of the Enterprise. You've got to spend some time on that establishing shot of the bridge, right? Because, fans are going to scream and cry and, you hate
if you don't
mail
get it
and,
right. Yeah, you got to get it right.
Right, and protest in front of your house if you didn't draw the captain's chair right. There's buttons on that arm, all that stuff. So I know because Scott does that all the time. Oh. So that being said,
thanks, Scott.
you have to pick and choose your battle, so to speak. So if let's say average, you got a 5-panel page. That establishing panel might be your bridge, but then in subsequent panels, how do you handle that? Because that's a techno background, right? So how do you establish that we're still on the bridge? How do you handle that in subsequent? Yeah, like in subsequent panels, do you just say, "Well, I'm just going to do like a a shadow or a shape"?
Yeah, you do shadows, or you just do a shape, or you count on the fact that the word balloon's going to cover up a lot of things anyway.
You get a meanwhile,
something else. Yeah, something else. But if you've established where everyone is really well, and then you can just throw a few details in to keep people cued in as to where they are viewing the scene.
Okay.
So that's how I cover it anyway.
What about lighting? How important is lighting as a penciler? And Do you make those decisions before you do the rough layouts, or do they develop as you go?
They usually develop as I go.
It's not really important. That's why I just paint all my pages black.
Yeah, we can
Well, there's
tell.
that,
Aaron
too.
just wings
When in
it.
doubt,
Aaron
black
just
it
wings
out. That's Wally Wood. When in
Okay.
doubt, black it out.
Black it out. Right.
Yeah. But yeah, if you've established where everything is, then you don't have to do all the detail every single panel. I mean, you still every once in a while, especially if it's a sequence that lasts for a while, you may want to go back in and add and show people where you still are, especially if they've moved at all. You in the scene, you want to go, okay, well, where are they now? And so you pull back. And you show where they are. But a lot of times, if you're doing dialogue between a couple of characters, you may do them in silhouette. That eliminates having to draw any background at all. So there's little tricks that are time savers. When we're not here at Silverline, we're not into that because we don't have deadlines that we necessarily have to meet. So
that's
you can do a lot more.
Yeah, I tried saying that to Roland one time, and he got
mad.
But
no,
I'm kidding.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, I had enough time that I could knock stuff out pretty quick.
What you mean is we don't have the hard deadlines of the factory style of crank it out every day no matter what. We've got a little more time because we're project based, not day to day.
Exactly. That's the best way to put it right there.
Well, that's how I like to characterize it, so Roland doesn't throw stuff at me. In terms of, is it fair to say you do an establishing shot every time there's a new scene?
Yes.
That pretty much calls for an establishing shot at that point.
Yeah. Now sometimes what you'll start with is you change a scene and it's a real close up. It's real close up. But then the first opportunity you get, then you do an establishing shot of where they are. But it just depends on what the script calls for. But you try to slip it in where you can.
Right. What about a new main character, Rob? What do you do? Like, let's say the next page, the script calls for, okay, this is a major character. Let's say it's the villain of the piece, and this is the first time we're seeing him. How do you handle the introduction of a very significant character?
I
mean, do you do a full body splash? Do you do at least from the waist up?
Depends on what it calls for. Depends on what it calls for. If it's dialogue, what part of if he's doing a monologue, what's the monologue about? Do we want to see more of his expression, or do we want to see what the guy looks like all over? It just depends on what the script calls for.
So you're more sensitive to what the script's calling for. I'm one of these guys who just says, "Hey, I'm going to do a splash page with this villain because he's it's cool." Yeah. Unless the script specifically says we don't want to reveal him yet. If the script says this is the big reveal, I'll find a way to make that a splash, because what I'm getting at is a lot of guys starting out, they want every page to be a pinup, right? Explain to us the problem with making every page a pinup. Why
the last issue, The Death of Superman, was so bad because of that.
yeah. Thanks, sir. There you go.
There's a good one. Yeah, it's been so long since I read that. I have no idea what that was actually like anymore. But that's it. The thing is, a lot of artists work that way because they want something they can sell at a convention.
Okay.
To make
why is that bad? What are the practical reasons that's not a good way to go if you're an aspiring penciler?
Well, it gets down to what are you trying to tell the story?
That's
or
it.
Are you trying to the story calls for certain beats, and it talks for certain things to be emphasized. If you're always emphasizing just the action over the emotional moments, and it's kind of that after a while, unless you're watching professional wrestling, or you're doing that kind of a comic book, that constant beating on each other, that gets old after a while. You know, how
Yeah.
many issues of that does anybody really want to see?
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, Transformers movies and
mhm.
it's kind of
Yeah,
that, right?
those aside, yeah. But yeah, I think
Robots beating each other up. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I personally I'm not into that. But
Right. Yeah,
so
whatever.
yeah,
But what we're saying in essence is if you have a through line and a story to tell, that should be carried through the action also.
right.
It shouldn't be a gratuitous action page. Since we're stumbled into the discussion of action and how to illustrate it, when you come up on a fight scene between two major characters, whether it's a duel in ancient Rome or two spandex characters or a Star Trek character,
Or me and Dean just fighting over
off an
something.
alien. Yeah, or me and Aaron fighting over something in a scene.
The most epic of all fights.
The most epic of all fight scenes.
Exactly. So when you approach that, how do you approach it? Do you want to let it continue the story, or do you do what I see some artists do, what I call a fight montage page? What are your thoughts on the through story action versus the fight montage?
Montage. Gonna do it with a montage.
You know,
yeah.
I used to see a lot of, especially Silver Age books, where the characters were talking in each panel, and there's no way that the action that they were taking in the panel gave them enough time to say all those words. So that works in that sort of setting, but so but if you're trying, yeah, exactly. Well, Stan Lee on some of the Jack Kirby stuff.
Sure.
Sure. There were a couple of times I remember Stan actually going, I'm not going to put any dialogue on this page. I'm just going to let Stan show you the fight, and so that's what happens. But if you've got, again, it comes to the story and what you're trying to tell. If there's a lot of exposition that needs to go on that page, then a montage will work nicely for that. So that gives lots of room for the letterer to put in all the exposition that needs to go in for that scene. But you could do it either way. But that if you've got a lot of exposition, a montage would be really good for that, I would think.
Well, always a training montage. If your character's going to, run up steps, lift weights,
the punching bag, the body bag,
drinking.
To be honest, I can't
wood.
remember. I can't remember ever drawing any sequences like that.
Okay.
But I can see where they would be necessary. But I don't recall ever having to do any.
Dean did some of that. Well, you do fight montages. You did that in that Silver Blade.
Christmas special. I did. I being limited to 6 pages was that was part of the reason I went for a montage. A lot of time, if I've got more time, like the normal length of a comic, 22 to 24, I will do a couple of pages, maybe 3, where I take the characters through the stage itself. I like to destroy the stage if I can. I also like to add, environmental debris, around the fight. And also I like the characters to, if they have to grab what's around them to use in the fight. I always thought that was cool too.
That's what Kirby was just
I love doing
genius at doing that. I mean, the fight between the Hulk and the Thing in like I think it's issue 25 or 26 of Fantastic Four, where at one point the Thing climbs up this building, and the Hulk grabs the bottom of the building and starts shaking it. And another one where the Thing grabs the Hulk ends up going down a manhole or something, and the Thing the Thing goes down in the manhole, and the Hulk reaches in, and what the Thing has done is grabbed a bunch of wires and stuck them up there for the Hulk to grab onto. There's just things like that.
Yeah, just clever.
Ripping a bus in half to get to the Thing. So just stuff like that. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
I want to drill down a bit more on what you're working on now. We can see on the screen when you go into ink, do you fill in the solids first and feather outward, or do you outline everything? How do you like to?
I usually kind of start with an outline,
Okay.
and then go in and fill in any feathering or any shading that needs to be done. I am not real strong on spotting blacks.
Okay.
So sometimes I will come back after I've inked a page, and I go, that needs more blacks somewhere. So I will go in and lay areas. Like I've set like this area right here. That's going to be like bushes or something, and that'll be black. And then maybe some other issues. And the same thing on this middle panel here. There's going to, this tree, that'll be all black, and some other stuff in the background to kind of make everything come forward.
Pop forward, sure.
Yeah,
sure. What
that's
about
the idea.
So do you use, if you were penciling this, it may be fair to say that a lot of aspiring pencilers are going to be starting out penciling for someone else to ink. When you're tasked with that job, what things do you have to pay attention to besides drawing a well-defined figures and objects and backgrounds and lighting and all the things we have to worry about? Do you use the common notations of X's for large areas of black? Okay.
Yeah, and I will also do it when I did a lot of Star Trek stuff, and I have to do a starry background. Why would I go through and draw each little star?
Oh, no. You say black with stars.
BWS. Black with stars in the upper left, and then BWS over the rest of it to make sure that they know this area. Because sometimes you'll have a planet in there somewhere, but you want to make sure that all the black with stars is around it. So you just have to indicate stuff like that. But X is what most newcomers don't realize is, what does he mean putting those X's in there? Am I supposed to ink in the X? No, that whole area is supposed to have black in it. So
I actually always number. I always fill in my with pencil, fill in my blocks with pencil. Just so if I resell it, it doesn't look like a bunch of a page with a bunch of X's. I don't know. I always have. I
do the same. Unless there were times when I was in such a rush, and if I knew the page wasn't a particularly signature page that might sell at a show or what have you, I would go ahead and do the X's. Right. But if it was a cover or a signature action page that might actually sell, then I would do what you're talking about. I would fill it in. Yeah. Scott, I can tell you're chomping at the bit there, being a Star Trek fan. You and Rory as well. Do you have any specific, ask the penciler of Star Trek some questions? Surely there's some bumping around in that fertile mind of yours.
Rory, go ahead.
Who does your hair?
Nice. I think he does it himself.
Now, is there a preferred brand of pencil and ink pens and paper and all that?
Okay, that's a micron, right?
Yeah.
No, it's an art line.
I see it now.
Are those refillable ones?
No.
Okay. I used to use repeatiographs, but they just became too much of a pain.
They are. Yeah, as you got to do this with them to get them started.
Yeah, and they choke and they sputter. No.
I've got some of those. That's what I used to do my panel.
Yeah,
repeatiographs.
That's all I used them for. I even lettered with these things at one time. God, at the end of a lettering session, my hand was like that.
Yeah,
you gotta. They're horrible.
You need
for any of that. No,
you need a good adult beverage after inking with those.
While I'm doing it.
The letters get progressively wigglier. Or Charles Schultz like
blurring together.
Yeah. So Rob, what about the pencil itself? Do you have a preferred brand of pencils since we're kind of focusing on that?
I just use a mechanical pencil and whatever I can find. These are
what about
0.5 millimeter pencil?
Yeah, same here.
Mm-hmm. So and an HB.
HB is what you use?
Yeah, okay. HB is what I use.
The only thing
like a number 2 pencil.
Yeah. Basically, the only thing I get picked on, hold your pencil up again. see the end of it. See how there's like a long metal thing. You try to find mechanical pencils that have like a long metal, like with the cylinder, because you've seen ones where it'll come in at the very end. Like see how it cones, and the pencil line comes out the very end of the cone. That drives me nuts.
Right.
So it's got to have like a
there,
little metal tube coming out
Yeah.
to show it. Then I'm happy. So I do get a little particular on like how I want my mechanical pencils to do, but most of the time.
Why doesn't that surprise me at all?
One of the reasons to do that is when you're doing straight lines, if you've got that metal, and you just rest that on the side of it.
Nice.
Yeah,
exactly.
See, and then you'll get it straight.
Right.
It just seems to work better.
If you just got just the lead sitting there, every time you put any pressure on it, you're going to snap it right off.
You're going to snap the lead right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good segue. Sorry to the. So if you're using that, like I said, that's like a little trick to make life easier on you. And I see you're wearing a glove as you normally do to not smear things, and then that piece of paper you have next to you that you rest your hand on.
Yes.
So these are like little tricks of the trade. Where did you pick these up?
How? Well.
Well, you smear pages and you hate it.
All right.
Yeah.
In order to be, I'm a cheap bastard.
Yeah.
I will buy big pads or big sheets of Bristol board that I use. I use Strathmore 300 or 400 series Bristol board, 2-ply, and I'll buy it in. I checked to see what the most economical way to get them was, and that's to buy a very large piece. I think it's 22 by 30 something. And I can cut 3 11 by 17 pages out of it by laying them out properly. So, but that always leaves a little extra. So that's what these are. I've got a whole selection of different sizes of those. I've got.
It's funny.
Some that size.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And
I use
those.
I actually quit using Bristol board years ago. I just buy reams of cardstock from the copy center.
Well, that's what I do for my my sketches that I do at conventions.
Yeah,
I use that. But if I need to do like perspective, it runs off the page. I just tape these, wherever I need them, and then I can run the ruler down that to get a proper. Say the horizon line's way off over here somewhere.
Sure.
So because it won't be on the page.
Right.
So in order to get everything to flow, I have to add a little piece on here. So I keep these handy right next to my drawing board here. But these, I don't remember why I got these really big ones. It's it's 11 by 17. They're 11 inches wide. So I don't remember what those are from, but you can see this one's pretty dirty. Yeah, that's because if I just rest my hand, exactly. My dad was a Yankee, so Yankees don't waste anything. You use everything that you have. You don't throw you throw nothing away. Plus, he grew up in the Depression, so But in order to kind of cut down on the amount of smudges that are on here, I'll rest that. Especially when I'm inking, I'll rest that so I don't smudge what's here. And then I go, wait a minute, all the detail's gone now because I've rubbed it off with my glove.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's what that's for.
A good shortcut, Rob, is also the backing boards for comics make great smudge guards.
Yeah, I have some of those.
I use those all the time.
But these are, these are pretty
that works great.
I use the cardboard I buy those like huge 14 by 17 pads of paper like Bristol. I just tear the cardboard off the back and draw out the cardboard.
That's what that's from, the 14 by 17.
Yeah. And it's so the cardboard gives a little. It's malleable and soft enough that it gives a little bit of a push in. So when I'm drawing on my cardstock, which is not the best, I can kind of push into the paper a little bit to make those dark lines. So if you actually feel my pencils, you can actually use like Braille. It's like, hey, look, you can feel it all. So, but that's when I feel it, and so I just take the cardboard off the back. Yeah, most artists, I think, as they go along, usually just end up bastardizing all their supplies to just get what they want out of it. Like they're trying hard to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very rare that I go into art stores and buy a bunch of supplies. I'm just always tearing something up and ripping something apart to do what I need. Yeah.
Well, the backing board too has an interesting phenomenon in that one side is slick and the other is matte. So you turn the slick side down, and it won't pick up the lead as much as the matte finish side.
That's a good.
Now, do you
that's a good
get
tip.
Silver Age, Golden Age, or modern backing boards? Which one, Dean? Do you?
I actually use modern. For those who are really taking notes here. Yeah.
I mean, hey, Aaron's particular about his mechanical pencil.
You know, it is.
Which dimensions do you want?
I actually use a Faber-Castell 9000 wooden shaft pencil. That's a HB. Those have just the perfect bounce for people. I like going back and forth from using a lead holder to using a wooden pencil, because there's a bounce to the wooden pencil that you can't get with a metal holder. I've also got, it's weird, golfers do this as well, but yes. I know. And you know, anyone who's done the same thing for years and used the same tool or weapon or you know, bow for archery or whatever. I have the very first lead holder that I ever used to get paid to do comic work for. I still have it from years ago. And I have that superstitious thing where I use it now, especially for covers. If I'm doing a cover, I'll use that particular lead holder just because, you know, it's been around since the very beginning, you know, and why would I want to get rid of it? Same thing with my drafting. It's the same drafting table I had when I first got started. Now I got rid of some of the old clunky things like a light box. A lot of us, you remember those old light boxes that have you know, they were huge and metal, and they had the frosted Plex on top, and you plugged it in. And they were initially used to look at slides, you know, for youngsters who don't know what that is.
Or light your artwork on fire, depending, you know, how hot
it is. But now you get one of those digital light pads, and they're awesome. You know, they're lightweight, and they're even lighting, and the whole bit. So I highly recommend those tools as well. You got one? Yeah,
I got one here
show us.
11 by 17.
Beautiful.
I can't even fit it in the screen here, but I've got.
That's great.
Yeah, and it's got a little where I plug in the power, and it.
You can buy those things at craft stores because they use them. You'd be amazed at how much other tools like I'll take from other, like this is for sewing. I'm like, well, it's mine now. You can.
Works for what I'm doing.
Works for what I'm doing now. Explain to us, Rob. Now that we're on the subject of the light board. Explain to us your take on tracing, enhancing.
Cheating?
You know, is it cheating? Is it cheating to trace your own work? Is it cheating to trace a photograph? Talk to us, because there's all different opinions about how much is it okay to trace and how much is it okay not to trace.
Yeah, come on, Rob. Destroy your reputation. Tell us how much you cheat.
Tell us the real stuff.
I cheat like an SOB.
Yeah. I know, me too.
Every chance I get. And I learned this from when I was working on Deep Space Nine at Malibu. And when I first started doing it, I tried to draw the likenesses. I had photographs of all the characters, and I tried to draw the likenesses that way. And I just never could quite get the proportions proper.
It's hard.
I mean, I got
getting likenesses is hard.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it really is.
So I'd learned a few techniques when I was in college on how to use a light table to sketch to do illustrations based on photos.
Sure.
And there's the technique, of course, is to know what to leave out. I mean, I think we've talked about that before.
We did.
But
we did.
Yeah, and so what I did was, you know, I watched the show. In fact, I videotaped it. I put it on VHS tapes, and then when I had to do the books, I would get out those videotapes, play scenes from it to find, because I would do kind of layouts of what the story was going to be like, and I'd go, okay, now I'm going to go back and see if I can find, you know, scenes from the actual show that I can use for to do the likenesses. Yeah, for reference for the likenesses. And I studied how to put a a camera, and this is a film camera, not a video, not a digital camera like we have today. And I would have to have the pictures printed, but I would set it up in front of the TV set, set the f-stop and all this other stuff, the shutter speed and everything, so that as I played that videotape, I took pictures, and then I had what they call an overhead projector that I bought from Dick Blick, and I would put those photos that I took inside that, and I'd blow them up or shrink them down, and then I would trace that projected image onto the page to drew the likenesses, and man, that sped up what I was doing. The likenesses got a lot sharper. So if that's cheating,
Oh, you do it, Chuck.
No, it's I mean, every time I see people who would have to do comics from shows and stuff with likenesses, I was like, hats off to you, man. I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, well, I think that's
I got better at it later.
It's a different.
It's
a different situation because.
Go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, I mean, in Rob's situation, you can't. I mean, with the comic book world, you can draw, Mr. Fantastic, and everybody knows because he's got gray in his hair and he's skinny. And Tony Stark, you give him a goatee, and his face is always going to change. But when you're drawing a specific character, if you need Cisco or you need anybody, I mean, I feel like it's almost necessary unless you're going to take forever to get their likeness in that photorealistic style.
Yeah, what helped is at one point in the series, I got an inker when I could get close, and he would bring it in just as the likenesses were just spot on after he got through with them. His name's, I believe, was Terry Pallett. Was the guy who was doing it, and I talked to him on the phone one time, and I thanked him for that, and he goes, "Well, I don't have to do that much work on yours, Rob. There's some other guys I have to work a lot harder on." So,
well, I thought you were going to say, that you back in the day that you scotch tape tracing paper to the TV screen and like traced,
Yeah.
Which would always get it awkward because the screen had a big bow to it.
The wife sitting in the background. Get out of the way! What the hell's wrong with you?
What's wrong? What are you doing?
Frame advance.
Which is really tough on a VHS player.
I know that.
Start the lines going across it.
Tracking.
Really bad. Tracking.
I got some notes. But now what I do is I look for stuff I Google stuff on the internet, and then
screen cap.
Yeah. And then I put it in Photoshop.
Yeah.
And I blow it up or shrink it down. Remember that page where we had that Legion?
Oh, wow. There you go.
I take it that's World War II.
Is
that World War II? Where is that from?
That's the whole page.
That's an original photo from the Roman Empire.
Obviously. I mean, come on.
Back then.
It's from
everyone hold very still.
It's from some movie that had Romans in it.
Oh, okay.
And you can see that I did do a little paste in back here.
Oh, okay.
I think I cut this and pasted it back here, but you can see all the guys on horseback that I pasted those in.
Rob
later.
has to have an interesting and unique archive of Deep Space Nine. He has cassettes. He has them printed out, photographs of scenes. He has to have a very unique
each episode frame by frame.
Yes.
You joke about that, Scott,
No.
but I have FedEx boxes 11 by 17 filled with references for the licensed books that I've done.
Yeah,
I mean, they're filled with stuff.
If Paramount's archives ever burnt to the ground, call Rob. We can recreate Deep Space Nine.
Better.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So I've got a question. If you don't, I know it was late, but I wanted to ask the artist.
Cut off.
Did you? Okay.
Too late.
Did you discuss? Quick off the top of your head, the most hated things you get from writers. Just maybe one or two, like the top.
You mean besides stories?
You
sure we do it.
Crowd scene.
Crowd
scene.
Okay.
Crowd
scene.
Somebody who really hates fire trucks.
Like when Scott,
That's
like when Scott, when you write things like an army of thousands
Yes.
teams
Yes.
toward Mount Doom. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
when do you want this done by?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow night if you
I'll
can.
tell you another one. You really want to piss off an artist. You really want to draw a 5-page car chase scene.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's the other
Cars
thing. Having
are
Google.
cars.
Google.
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah.
Go.
Google
Identifiable
again.
car. Now yes, Google, but here's how I solve that as well. Go to some of these 3D libraries online, like Turbo
Yes.
Squid and
Yeah.
Sketchfab, right? A lot of them will
Yes.
let you just open up, not without buying the 3D model. You can open it up and rotate it. So if you've got a Mustang or you've got, a
Screen
Chevelle
capture.
or a Camaro, you can angle that sucker like you want it, and you
Mhm.
screen cap
That's
it,
cool.
and boom, take it into Photoshop. It's all yours.
You're
So,
done. Yep.
Yeah.
I could see. I remember when I would look at some of the new, Star Wars comics. They would always draw the Millennium Falcon, which is, because I actually drew that once. I said I'm going to draw a Millennium Falcon freehand just for a challenge. It took me a week, and I think I pulled it off pretty well. So after that, I'm like, well, how do these people in these comics draw this? It was okay. It would look like it was box.
It was round mostly.
It was round and so
mostly had some details on it. It had an antenna.
Kind of
Anyway,
pointy.
That's the best phallic ship I've ever seen, Aaron. Fantastic. But I was like, how do these guys draw this in these comics all the time? And then somebody's like, well, they just use 3D models and draw over it. And I was like,
they pose it. Yeah,
that makes sense. But then I started thinking about the guys in the early 80s and 70s who drawn Star Wars, and they must be looking at the new guys and being like, you punks, man.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I mean, in an after show discussion, I showed you guys my model collection.
Oh yeah.
Ships.
Fantastic. That part of the reason I have those is I built those to use as reference for Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
So that's why I built them. And I would sit with those in my hand like this and draw them. So
it's hard.
It is, but I got pretty good at it.
As a skill set and also I don't know, something you would like more. I have found a lot of times people that can draw machines really well have trouble with people. And is that something like is because you like it more?
You hate people,
or you hate or is it because you spend so much time? I mean, I don't know. Does an artist, and I'm speaking in generalities, do they spend their time learning the machines and then their skill kind of takes a backseat?
This is kind of going to be kind of a hard one to explain. Okay, so
it's individual to the artist.
It has to do with interconnectedness of form. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you draw a car or a vehicle, they are bits and pieces stacked on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're generally good at drawing like a cube in perspective or something else in perspective, you can just continuously kind of stack those on top of each other to get like a boat or a robot or a car or whatever. Humans are different because you have to take those pieces and kind of blend them in so they look like flowing in one shape.
Right.
Cars, like you could draw a car frame.
Yeah.
Right. But when you draw like the side mirrors, they're not. They need to look like they're just on the car frame. They don't need to blend into the car frame.
Yeah.
Human beings are a little organic stuff is different. This is why when you see 3D models in movies, like every time you see Transformers, those Transformers look like super real, and they still haven't quite nailed humans to look absolutely real.
Yeah.
And it's because they're organic, that sort of flowing shape versus like the stacking of blocky shapes. That's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah,
that's very good.
Part of what Aaron's saying, I'll riff off of that just a little bit. The reason hands are difficult for people to draw is because familiarity with your hands, that's one of the most familiar items.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what they're supposed to look like.
Right.
If you can't pull it off, your mistake will be glaring.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you're drawing something no one's ever seen before, no one knows if you're drawing it wrong, right?
Sure.
So part of it has to do with the identifiability of what you're drawing. If you're drawing a specific Mustang from 1967, you better know what you're doing because everybody's going to go, no, that's not how the bumper is. That's not how the wheel well is. That's not how the... So again, identifiability has a lot to do with the difficulty. One of the advantages of, to be honest, Aaron's style versus a more realistic style is that if you're doing a more interpretive style, if you're drawing in a looser style, and this goes all the way from what Aaron's doing, which is more cartoon and more caricature.
Yes, I'm a cartoonist more than a realistic illustrator.
All the way to Bill Sienkiewicz and even Jock. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jock's work.
Oh, God, I think I remember
his pen
that.
name, right?
Yeah.
So that's a loose reality where the exaggeration level is to such a degree of disproportionate to reality that they can get away with drawing their version of a Mustang 1967, their version of a human hand, their version of a recognizable object. So what you want to do as an artist is find your comfortable place on the spectrum, okay? All the psychology majors are laughing at me now, and the psychiatrists are laughing at me. What? Y'all are on the spectrum? What?
Well, that's obvious. All artists are on the spectrum.
Obviously. The visual spectrum, right? So you find your comfortable place all the way from pure caricature all the way to photorealism. You find your happy place on that line, and you stay there, and people connect with that because you're comfortable there. It's not awkward. You can tell, like, another way to answer this, Scott, is you can tell when an artist is drawing on something that he's not comfortable with. It feels awkward and clunky and forced, so to speak.
We added Brent.
So, hey, Brent.
Hey, Brent.
Welcome, my friend. Hi. We're talking about what's difficult to draw for an artist. If they can draw machines, are they more likely to be able to draw humans and organic items? If
how much do they hate people?
And
how much do they hate people?
I'm glad Brent jumped in because he'll help me with this reference. You're talking about picking a style. I remember I always found it odd. Occasionally, like in the Simpsons, they would throw in a car that was very realistic. And I remember like Apu had a Trans Am or a Firebird. It was very realistic. Whereas Homer drove this rectangle, very Simpsons. Right. And Apu's car was like because there's a scene he's like cleaning, like he's
right.
And then sometimes every once in a while they have a very realistic vehicle, and it always stood. I mean, it's the Simpsons. Who cares? But you're right. Sticking with a style, you're right. You can exaggerate or make it cartoony, so that when you deviate from that, it's kind of odd.
Yeah.
Right. Well, obviously,
it stands out. Yeah.
For comedic effect, that's done in a cartoon that's meant to be funny. But again, when you can also make that mistake drawing comics, where if you're drawing in a style that is surreal, which is kind of like Jim Lee, right? If Jim Lee's drawing something that's supposed to be a sports car, if he does a generic sports car, that works. If he does an exact drawing of a specific sports car, it almost stands out too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because his other stuff is stylized reality. And then you got this hyper real thing. I mean, we've all done this before because we're like, oh, I got to get this right. Everybody's going to make fun of me if I don't draw it right. Or, they're going to think I'm like Aaron and I can't draw anything right. And it's just going to be
that's
bad.
obvious.
Right. So no, I'm kidding her. But that's the point is all of your work has to be consistent on that line that you've chosen to draw. And that can, of course, move as long as it moves consistently throughout your career, because you've watched artists go from their early style. I'll take Mike Mignola as an example. I don't know if you know Mignola's work, but when he first started out, he was more realistic. And then as he went on, it became more Picasso, like more expressionistic.
Same thing with Picasso.
Oh, well, yes. It was the gray or the blue or the like Frank Miller, for example, right? The Cubist, right? Like Frank Miller is another example. When he broke in drawing Daredevil, it was more realistic house style, and then he evolved into the blockier style that he's more famous for. So, but again, he kept it. No matter what he was drawing, the style was a comprehensive, complete style, and that's what's important. That's why people like, Aaron's style is cool because it's complete, comprehensive, and everything is funneled through that particular lens.
Right. If I drew a super realistic car, it would look, I exaggerate shapes and stuff a lot.
Right, So that works. And so Rob, our feature here, artist here today, what would you call your style? And obviously you're in the more realistic school, but it's.
I mean, I know he refers to my style as crap, so I'd be curious to see what he refers to his
Yeah.
style as.
Like what is your style?
Semi-crap.
Semi-crap.
Refined
One step
crap.
above Aaron.
Polished,
It's just,
refined, polished crap.
Ladies and
Polished
gentlemen,
crap. That's
polished-
perfect.
polished
Polished crap. Yeah. Crap with a shine.
the other thing is talk to us, Rob, about reconciling the speed of execution with detail, and how you came to resolve that issue with yourself. Like, okay, this is the level of detail I can do and make a living doing this. Was that an important step in your...
Especially when we were on hard deadline. You have to know, you have to be able to pace yourself in order to make that deadline. That's when you start learning, okay, there's only going to be this much detail in this panel, and this is going to be a light detail panel because there's going to be word balloons and it'll fill it in. But this one here, I want to show more of the setting, and the same thing here, and I can ease off of it. But here and then on the last panel, we're coming in real tight, so it doesn't need details in the background at all. But you learn after a while. After you've done it for a while, you go, okay, I can do this much on this type of page and get it done. So you start learning how to pace yourself. And if you know you're going to have a tough page coming up, and here's another thing, a lot of artists will jump around inside the book. They'll do page 3. They'll do page 3, then page 1, then page 12. I start at page 1 and work my way through, because that helps me know if I'm on page 4, I know I've got 18 pages left to do.
Right.
So in a 22-page, in a 20-some-odd page book, I can't do math in my head.
Right. What's your advice on silhouettes? Talk to us about when you use silhouettes.
Yeah.
What are they used for? Primarily,
they're used as time savers.
Okay.
And especially if you've got a scene where a couple of people are talking, you got a lot of talking heads. You can break that up. You can make it interesting by putting a set of silhouettes into that sequence to make it work.
I mean, they're also used for atmosphere too.
Yes, you can also do them for atmosphere. But generally it's from Wally Wood's lazy layouts. I have a copy of that somewhere, but one of those lazy layouts is
Aaron has a book
silhouette,
like that too.
a silhouette with no panel borders in between a couple of other panels. I mean, seriously, that's what it is.
I remember we had to do that. The Cuber School, we had to draw an entire page of silhouettes. Harder than you think.
Yeah, it is.
Oh wow,
it is.
Yeah.
Because you have to use visual cues to identify whether it's a specific character or a specific item, a vehicle, a weapon.
You design your characters different when you're doing them in silhouette like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to have some sort of identifying thing about them.
But
that should be true of any character you create.
Like Indiana Jones.
Or like the Enterprise.
Yes.
It's got
the shape of it.
Each one of the Enterprises has a different shape to it.
That's what the Army does, or did. They would have flashcards with just black silhouette of helicopters, tanks, planes, and have to memorize the shape.
I could see that, especially if you're doing like long range combat and you see this on the horizon.
That looks Russian.
They used to have these little plastic handheld for World War II. These ID models. They're really cool, little detailed models, and they made them this pocket size, this big, so you hold them at arm's length. For the Navy, you could identify, that's a PBY Catalina, or that's a Mitsubishi
Catalina wine mixer.
Yeah.
It's a Warthog.
World War II, Dean. Come on.
Hey man,
that's a B-17 F-16 Falcon Warthog.
No, that would be a P-51D Mustang.
P-51 with the bubble canopy. Hey, I could talk airplanes all night. That could be our spin-off, airplanes.
World War II.
Is that an A-10?
Don't get me started on airplanes. Oh man.
Also the sound
Warhawk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
The sound they make.
P40.
You could tell when the Germans were coming over because their engines were tuned more to
For what?
Yeah.
Whereas
They were it
whereas
was a
British
metric.
plane-
It was a metric
British plane
rotation.
Right.
Hey, the
right.
P-51, I've heard, is a Cadillac of the sky. Okay,
It is.
All right.
It is.
Yeah.
Name
But
that movie. Name that movie.
That would be Empire of the Sun.
Yes,
my friend.
Dean. I can always count on you. Said by a young.
That was Christian Bale.
Christian Bale. That's a great movie.
Yes.
I love that
Yes,
movie.
it is a great movie.
If
Yes,
you
it
haven't
is.
seen Empire of the Sun, watch it tonight.
You got to watch it. You got to watch it. Another beautiful plane silhouette, the Supermarine Spitfire.
Spitfire, yes.
Beautiful airplane.
Oh, man. Hey,
I got
and
to see
speaking
a
of
training
Spitfires, we got some
Have we
Spitfires.
gone off on a tangent?
We have.
We have indeed. We're
Spitfires
going to bring it back. We're going to bring it back home.
Heavy on the Spitfire and Wolf Hunter. Wolf Hunter should be shipping soon. Sorry, Dean, to throw out some. But
Nice. No.
yeah,
That's good.
I've seen
You're
the
plug in a book.
Plug in the book. If you supported Wolf Hunter and our good
did
buddy
indeed.
Tim on the Tuesday show, Tim. Yeah, he wrote a great story, World War II. Sorry, I love.
No, it's a good one.
AJ does machines.
Yes.
Airplanes beautifully. He is spot on. Talk about if you want to put, Spitfire, that's a Spitfire. I think Tim, a while ago, he said he had to research where the throttle is. What is the control panel of a Spitfire look like? Because someone's going to say, actually,
there's always the
in 1943 they moved the ammeter control to the left of the altimeter.
Yes. So yes, the gasket, the fuel gauge is not there actually. So Rob, one last thing before we go off on another tangent. When is it, in your opinion, when is it appropriate to use oblique angles, fisheye lens, special effect viewpoints? When does a penciler employ those camera techniques?
When it adds to the emotion of the scene, or it adds to the feel of the scene. Right. I don't do a lot of foreshortening in the work that I do, unless it's an action scene, and then I try. You want that punch to come out of the page at the viewer. That's what always got me about Kirby's work, is that, man, those figures they came right out of the panel at you. It's for
example,
emotional punch. It's for
emotional punch. So, for example, if a street criminal was looking up in the light of a street lamp to see Batman coming down at him, for example, or Daredevil, you might use an oblique angle. You might use a hyper extended lens to get a fisheye view, just to add to the drama of this guy's about to get crushed. That kind of thing. So again, emotional punch. What about extreme close-ups? How often do you use them, and what do you use those for?
Again, it always comes back to emotion and telling the story. There are times I remember drawing one panel in a book called Daughter of Dracula. Where the two characters, it's about the Dracula's daughter meeting and falling in love with the Red Baron, and they have a torrid love affair. And at one point,
was there any other type of love affair?
That's redundant.
Torrid. Always torrid.
Well, this one's really torrid. We're talking vampire here, man.
They really know how to ratchet up the lovemaking.
Yeah.
So you think you can hook me up, Rob? Think you can hook me up with that? I'm always in the mood for a torrid love affair. I'll meet you in the alley out back.
Come on over.
Wow, but talk about going off the rails, kids.
I was talking about Mustangs and Spitfires.
Book, I did just the lips.
Just the lips?
They were the lips of her lips and his lips, and that's all that was in the panel.
Okay, so no little fangs poking out?
No, nothing.
Nothing
else.
Okay.
Not even the rest of their face. Just those sets of lips, because they're about to have this really passionate kiss,
Oh
and so I had to really
talking, Rob.
Glasses off.
You're getting Aaron. You're getting
Yeah, I
Aaron
know.
real excited here, so you might want to.
And what was the next panel?
So that's just not
this is a family show.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got the lips, and the lips are hanging in the air. So what next, Rob? What next? Don't leave me.
Silverline After Dark starts.
You'll have to buy.
I'll send you a copy of the book.
Silverline behind the paywall, ladies and gentlemen. Silverline Plus.
Silverline Plus.
That's right. For the after hours material. That's right. Wow, it's just so bad. So no, what I was getting toward was more the idea of, like, say it was a mystery show, and you had the perpetrator reaching for the murder weapon. And you might do an extreme close-up of the hand, reaching for the candlestick or the knife or what have you. So again, storytelling focus, but not overdoing it. Let's see. What about closing out a book? Do you like closing out a book with a splash, or do you stick to the script? Or how much do you input your opinion over the writer's opinion? Because boy,
it depends on the style.
We all know how that works.
If we're working full script, I have very little input. Or occasionally I'll go, we can add another panel, or we can combine these two panels, or this page I think we can do as a full splash, and then we'll move the rest of the scene to another page. So we'll add a page to the book. Things like that. But as far unless if you're working Marvel style, where you're working just from an outline or a page by page breakdown, then that's a whole different deal. That's the artist always has a lot more input when you're working that way. So it just depends on the type of script I'm working with, and the writer.
And the writer, Roland is he could tell you some stories about our collaborations, which we'll save for a whole show, where I would just say things like, I'm going to make this a splash page, and we're just going to push all this other stuff to the side. Yeah. But, it works, because if you're trying to tell the story and really grab the reader's attention without sacrificing the panel-to-panel storytelling, it helps to have a collaborative writer and not someone who just says, okay, it's my way or the highway, because that helps the book. If, the rule of thumb really is if it helps the book. Have you ever had a writer send your page back and go, Rob, what are you thinking, man? This isn't what I wrote. This is crap. Yeah. Have you had that happen? Did that ever happen?
Yeah, it happened one time.
What'd you do? Tell us the story, if you don't mind.
Well, it was I won't say who the writer is because I respect him a great deal, he actually had a point.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that.
It was no, I wouldn't respect you.
Notice
he wouldn't expect me to be like
came right out.
No, this just happened yesterday. No. But it was a mystery story. Okay. And it was a fair play. In other words, you had to show the clues. And the way I drew one of the clues didn't work real well. But it was but part of it was that it wasn't, and the writer took some blame for it too. He says, I probably could have explained that a little better, what I was looking for here. But that's the only time I've gotten any kind of negative feedback like that from a writer. But he had a point. I probably should have done. I did research on trying to do it the right way, and I probably shouldn't have gone so far in to try and get it exactly like the real thing is, and gone for something a little more cartoony. So I don't know. It just didn't work, and he pointed it out.
You could have just called Aaron and said, "I need cartoony," and it would have been
all
that would have solved it. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
but I don't respect him. So why?
Well, there's that.
That's true.
So,
there's that.
See, there's that. So that comes into play. Well, before
And he
we're
wants
coming
his book to look good, right?
That's
So
right,
you know,
there's considerations.
Yeah.
Well,
I want semi crap, not full crap.
that's right. That's right.
Never go full crap.
Semi crap, never go full crap, or you'll never get the award.
Never go full crap.
That's what they say in the business. Before we wrap things up, I want to open the floor up to any last questions for the Paragon of Pencils, Rob Davis, before we close out tonight.
Before we get too far into this, I was tasked with making sure that we talk about the Kickstarter.
There's a Kickstarter, isn't there?
Yes,
let's talk about.
And it's getting close to its goal, and maybe getting a stretch goal going. So we should mention that. And I'm surprised Aaron hasn't said something, because
Aaron,
his
talk
book
to us
is one
about
of them, Obsoletes.
Talk to us about the
We're trying to
Kickstarter,
join
man.
right now. We're doing the Obsoletes Beyond the Stars. I think that was the other one. And
Beyond the Stars. That's the Ron Ford book.
Yeah, I think
books
we're
in
501.
And
it's not just an anthology with short stories. They're actually 3 complete issue ones of one book, which I thought was pretty cool. And you can choose your own cover too.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you would choose mine, but you can choose your own
Only
cover.
if you respect Aaron.
And only if you didn't want
crap, you bring that up. Well, okay, maybe
instead of semi crap, but
semi crap.
It's
if
all
you want
on
to
a
look
spectrum.
absolutely.
We're
And
all
my
on a
covers
spectrum
actually
here.
do give the smell, the whole complete crap smell. So there's that too.
Wow,
the whole trifecta.
Yeah, talk about a spectrum, man. It just keeps going downhill. We're all gonna get diagnosed.
I think if Barb had
before
been
it's all
here,
over.
we'd have been a lot nicer about all this.
Well, you know, the boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. And you know, before we sign out tonight, I like to bring us all together for that one final moment where we say what we say. What do we say, guys, when we're about to?
Is that where we are already?
Say goodbye. Believe it or not,
we are.
Time flies.
Oh my goodness!
When Aaron goes off on a tangent, time flies. We like to say, "Make mine."
Make mine.
Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline.